Go Hunt Live show hosted by Todd Nevins.
This is Todd Nevins, and I interview people that had seemingly normal lives and careers going, but they pulled the ripcord to epically reinvent themselves in order to pursue a life full of purpose and passion. This episode is sponsored by PrintDirtCheap.com. Jeff Chrisman, the founder of Print Dirt Cheap, and the crew there are rock stars when it comes to delivering top quality printing at a cheap price. If you've met me in the last 3 years and I handed you a business card, it was printed by Print Dirt Cheap. They're my online digital printing company for everything. They do banners, company letterhead, a ton of direct mail pieces, funky decals, even menus for restaurants, over 30 categories of printing products, and yes, business cards. And they do it fast and they do it cheap. Jeff has streamlined every little aspect of the business to provide the perfect user experience, delivering the best product in the industry. I have personally been to the offices and I have seen it firsthand. But see for yourself. Go to printdirtcheap.com, use promo code GoHuntLife and get $10 off of your order. Or if you want to get a sample of their work, click on Sample Pack and they'll mail you one out for free. Go to printdirtcheap.com, use promo code GoHuntLife for $10 off of your next print job.
Sometimes when the universe hears you put that out there, it turns into, the universe will conspire to give you exactly what it is that you're asking for. Sometimes not necessarily the way you're asking for it or how you expect to get it, but it will give you what you want. I think it's very daunting to a lot of people to kind of start over or to think about what you want to do differently. But sometimes things kind of happen in a way that sort of make those things happen for you naturally and organically. And then you just have to kind of go with the flow. And sometimes within all of that is disaster, sometimes challenges, tragedy, all kinds of things like that. But at the end of the day, I think it is really refreshing to do something that you didn't necessarily envision yourself doing in the first place.
That is incredible wisdom. I could listen to that a million times. That is Lisa Benz, and she is a Brooklyn girl, born and raised, and she was a teacher for 20 years in the New York public school system, but she reached a point where she wanted to do something different. She just wasn't sure what that was, so as she just said, she put it out there into the universe, and it conspired to help her find her new path. 7 years later, she is now a chef and founder of Stush in the Bush, where rustic meets gourmet in the hills of Jamaica. Her and her husband Chris started and have built an organic farm and a curated experience for their guests, but at the base of it all is a love story. Their story, built around the love of their land, of each other, and the beauty of the experience. My conversation with Lisa Benz starts right now. Lisa, thank you for jumping on the show today.
You're very welcome, Todd. It's my pleasure.
What city are you in right now? And if you were to walk outside, describe what you would see.
I currently live in the hills of St. Anne, Jamaica. So we are in a little village called Freehill, and we actually are about 2,000 feet above sea level. So for us, outside looks like if I look out, I can kind of see all the way down to the coast, but I also see all of the hills and the mountains and, little houses dotted all over, pine trees, blue maho, coconut palms. It's just, an every morning thing.
That sounds awesome. So you're up in the hills, but you can see the ocean.
Yeah, we can see what would be called St. Anne's Bay.
Okay.
So that little sliver of blue, you can see that. And we can actually see the cruise ships going in and out from Ocho Rios when they're coming in the morning and when they're leaving out in the evening. It always looks like they are floating in the sky. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. How old are you? Are you married and do you have kids?
I am married. I am 49 and I have a daughter, Tyler, who works with us here. And then by marriage, I have two others, and one is in New York and the other one is in Toronto, Canada.
Very cool. All right. So what's your primary way that you earn a living? Like, what is your profession?
Well, I sort of struggle with that from time to time. There was a point where I was sort of like saying that I was doing farming, and then there was a point where I was doing some cooking. But now I think I've settled on chef. So right now we run a 17-acre organic farm in Jamaica, in the hills of Jamaica, and we make products from some of the things that come from the farm and other things that are locally sourced. And then we also do what is called a farm-to-table experience. So we have people who come up and book for lunch or dinner to come up and have an experience with us that lasts anywhere between 3 to 4 hours. So you're coming up for lunch, but it's not just lunch. You get to do an earth walk. You get to do a farm tour, and you sort of just kind of come and share the experience with us. So that is what I do now.
And those are the people that are coming off of the cruise ships, correct?
Not necessarily. We serve, all walks of life, right? So we don't really get quite a lot of people from the cruise ships. I would say that that's pretty much a one-off. Mostly we get quite a lot of locals who come up, who drive out from Kingston or drive out from Montego Bay or other areas in the island to come out and have, a birthday celebration or a girls' day out or a book club meeting, or they're coming to yoga brunch or any of those things. So I would say if I had to call it a percentage, I would say it's about 60% locals and about 40% tourists.
Wow.
So we will get tourists that come in from the hotels and from different places and whatnot. And we do have a lot of people from the diaspora who come back as well, who might see the videos or see things overseas and then come in and say, hey, did you guys know about Stush in the Bush? You need to come. So that is more of, I would say, what happens. So oftentimes it's visitors who at one point were Jamaican or are Jamaican, but are living out in the diaspora and come back and want to bring their current family up here, or there are people who are like return visitors who come up every time they have anybody on island. This is one of the places that they tend to bring them.
That's an awesome dynamic for a business. I did not expect that. But you were not always living in the hills of Jamaica. You're a Brooklyn girl.
No. At base, I'm a Brooklyn girl.
Okay. So
True.
Take me back to your life 7+ years ago when you were living in Brooklyn and working, and what were you doing?
Yeah. So I came up in education. So I was an English lit major, and I took that and started to teach high school English. And so from high school English, you travel all the way up to where you're, running a school. And while you're doing that, the way that education has been changing all across the land is, it's become very test heavy. And it's become where you're not creative in the classroom and all of those other things that are going on. And I think after 20 years in education, I sort of felt like I was coming to a close. My daughter was about to go off to high school, and I kind of had decided that I wanted to do something different. I wanted to move from New York. I'd grown up in New York and been there all my life, and I sort of decided that I wanted to do something different. So sometimes when the universe hears you put that out there, it turns into, the universe will conspire to give you exactly what it is that you're asking for. Sometimes not necessarily the way you're asking for it or how you expect to get it, but it will give you what you want. So when she was about to go off to college, I really told everyone at school that I think this is it for me. This is going to be the last year. And I came to a visit in Jamaica. I came on vacation and I met Christopher. And after that, that was pretty much all she wrote. A total series of events happened that just kind of made this move more logical for me, and also just like, what are you waiting for? I think it's very daunting to a lot of people to kind of start over or to think about what you want to do differently, but sometimes things kind of happen in a way that sort of make those things happen for you naturally and organically, and then you just have to kind of go with the flow. And sometimes within all of that is disaster, sometimes challenges, tragedy, all kinds of things like that. But at the end of the day, I think it is really refreshing to do something that you didn't necessarily envision yourself doing in the first place. So you take a love of food And you sort of, take that from hanging out with your girlfriends and doing a book club and everybody cooking. You take that from your dad possibly making things way back when and your mom being the everyday cook. So somebody was the chef and somebody was the cook. And then you take all of those experiences and your love of food and the love of creativity, and then you turn that into, a completely viable experience. So I think it's really different.
You could have started a restaurant in Brooklyn, though, or done something different in Brooklyn.
But I don't think I wanted to start a restaurant, and I don't view us as a restaurant.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's the thing that's very important for people to understand. When you come to Stush in the Bush, you get it. Before you come to Stush in the Bush, and while you're still sort of saying, oh, you're a restaurant and what time is dinner? It doesn't quite work like that. So it's much more of a curated experience. So, and it's also chef's choice based on seasonality, sustainability, locally sourced. So it's a completely different experience from when you walk into a restaurant and you choose what you're going to have for dinner.
I'm going to back up just a little bit because
Sure.
you threw out the "I think I'm done" into the universe and to your coworkers and friends and associates. But did you have a plan as to what was next in your life? You were just waiting for the opportunity to present itself.
I really kind of felt like what I wanted to do was move to California or Chicago or something like that. I don't necessarily think that I was going to veer outside of the education. And I totally did. Because when I first came down to Jamaica, they were in a hiring freeze, education-wise. Mm-hmm. So I needed to find something else to do. So that is where, when the things that you think you're able to do, things change up. And you have to kind of dig a little deeper and see what are the things that still inspire you, what are the things that stir you, all of that. And the fact that we were growing things and growing produce and making decisions about seeds and about what we were going to grow, I think that kind of spurred on how you like to eat. And the fact that being a vegetarian in Jamaica, a lot of times here, what people view as vegetarian is usually soy, right? So it's either tofu or veggie chunks or veggie mince or something along those lines. And people don't really take vegetables and sort of see them as the main star. Vegetables generally are the sideshow, most places. So you kind of start to look at it a little bit in a different way. But no, I did not have a plan.
Were you always a vegetarian?
So, no, I met Christopher and became a vegetarian because he was a vegetarian.
Okay, so you go to Jamaica.
I sort of just decided to go cold turkey.
You go to Jamaica on a vacation. Was it, who were you with? And did you see Chris sitting in a coffee shop or what?
Chris was actually at an event that I went to in a place called Somerset Falls. And he was working at the time. And I saw him. And we were introduced together by a gentleman named Taibika Fudayo. And he basically took my hand and put my hand in Christopher's hand. And so at the base of all of this is this love story, right? And the love story just carries through the food, it carries through the produce, it carries through the products, it carries through everything that we do. So when you come up here, it's a completely different experience because it's really curated by the two of us, right? You're getting a slice of our life, our daily, everyday, how we eat, how we live, what we value, less is more, all of those things. So all of that is kind of wrapped into the experience. So when you leave here, your heart is supposed to be full and your stomach is supposed to be full.
What was it 7 years ago, though, when you met Chris? Was the farm there? Was he there? What was it?
He was here, and it was just a farm. It was just a farm. There were no permanent structures on the place at all. None of that was here. So this is something that's being built from the ground up.
By you two. Did you go back to New York when you were on vacation, or did you just stay?
I did. No, no, no. I went back to New York. I still had a daughter to send off to college and things to tie up and all of those kinds of things. So all of that happened. And yeah, and then we sort of decided to kind of come back to Jamaica. So he was here sort of, cutting a road and kind of trying to put in some infrastructure and all kinds of things like that. And then we ran out of money. So after running out of money, then it sort of became, well, what are we going to do? So then we started to kind of just go back to what we had, which was produce and all of those things. So we started to do fairs and we started to do events and we started to make products and we were doing things all over the place. And then once that happened, then from there, we just kind of, went in a completely, well, not in a completely different direction. We started to build on that. And in different ways, again, once you start to do something, a lot of people that have different connections start to kind of wind up in your life. So that's how things kind of erupt. So it's never something that you do alone and you're just kind of like, doing this thing and, it just happens. It doesn't happen that way. It happens with many people sort of saying, hey, let me give you a couple recommendations here, or hey, do you need some help doing this? Or, so all of those things kind of come together and put you in the place where you are now. So yes, the hard work is essential, but it's also really critical to have other people, friends, colleagues, people just who know people. At the end of the day, it's really always about that. Right? It's about your intentions, setting intentions and integrity in the quality of what you do. And then people recognizing that and sharing that. So when you talk about like the mic video, that mic video happened very organically. Somebody came up, had a really great experience, pitched it to them once they knew, once they heard that Royal Caribbean was looking for branded content. They reached out to us. They came up for 2 days. They had this great experience. They put out the video in February, and you're at 1.7 million likes and 20,000 shares. I mean, there are those kinds of things that happen. Yeah.
That's how we're talking. I mean, just you're referring to a Royal Caribbean video that I simply saw as a YouTube sponsored video by Royal Caribbean and saw your story, and it's an incredible one. And sure, it's the land, it's the people, it's the experience, it's the love, it's the entire
it's
experience.
All of those things wrapped together. And I think one of the things that I have to constantly big up Mike for is, when you're here for 2 days, you're taping everything, right? And at the end of the day, you cull out what is supposed to be the essence of what you're trying to share with people. And I think in 4 minutes, you get everything in 4 minutes. So, I mean, it's pretty phenomenal that people can sort of like, take it down to just that essence of what it is that we do. So it's pretty cool.
It is really cool. So the evolution of your business, you were growing produce, you were at markets, and you were hustling to make it work. And then it's evolved into the facility. Mm-hmm. The home that you have there is beautiful, and people are coming up from the city to spend a few hours in the afternoon. How did that evolve? Like, were there a couple of big tipping points that you can point to? And certainly this most recent video, I would assume, is yet another tipping point that gets your story out there. But are there others?
Well, definitely. I mean, there are some just basic things in terms of like friendships and investment. And we have some partners, Tanea and Andre Woolery, Andre is an artist and visual artist, and Tanea is a digital marketer. And at this point, they sort of came into our lives kind of organically. And she was doing something called Woolery Kitchen. And that whole, she came to us and sort of like wanted to see what we were doing. And she was sort of doing something similar where people could come to a country and sort of experience, local food and, be in someone's space and all of that. And, she came to experience that at us. And then she was doing something similar. And then it became this partnership and this dialogue. And even now they are working to launch a new brand that they're working on called Black Excellence. And I think it's really important because, again, it talks about the accessibility of art for everyone, you know? And when you have people like that in your lives, you know, there are many tipping points, right? Because they create a lot of those things. So it's important to have partners who believe in, partners who are like family, and partners who are also invested in, you know, the overall dream, right? Not just the pieces, but the overall long-term positioning and what needs to happen. You have people who are willing to invest in you. You have people who are, looking to make sure, kind of like venture capitalists, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
That are also
That's exactly what I was thinking.
That this kind of experience can go on to other people, to go out to people. But ideally speaking, you still want, for us, we still want it to be an intimate experience. I think, especially after the Mike video dropped, there was a portion of time where people were just kind of like trying to show up. And the beauty of what we do in the first place is that it's an intimate experience. If I have 50 people here, you don't get the same experience as if I have 2 or if I have 10, or, you know what I mean? So it's a very different, thing. And there are times when we do large events, and there are times that we do catering outside, and there are different things. But I would say one of the key factors in what we do is the creation of that partnership, and that, the initial investment in human resources and money as well. So, yeah. And she does all of our marketing. Right. So all of the posting and all of the things, I mean, there's an overall social media plan. There's the development of the website. There's all of those things that allow you to have essentially what people would like to call a first world experience, right? As opposed to something different. So, they are critical and key in all of those things that we do going forward.
Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Click Placement, a digital agency designing Google AdWords strategies and Amazon PPC campaigns for startups, small businesses, and even people building a side hustle. Hit up clickplacement.com to start a conversation. If you would like to personally support the Go Hunt Life podcast, go to patreon.com/Go Hunt Life to make a donation.
I want to talk first about what this experience entails for somebody that comes and spends a day with you, and then also how it's evolved into the sauces and preserves and dressings that you sell on your website. So first, it's the experience. Describe like a typical experience. What time? I know it's all reservations and it's all pre-planned and ready to go. What time would me and my wife and another couple show up in the morning, and what should we expect through the day?
You would essentially go onto the website, and from the website, you would book your visit. So you would choose your menu, right? There are 2 options, essentially, right? One is a 4-course meal, and the other is a 6-course meal. And you would choose either noon or you would choose a 5 p.m. booking. So our dinner seating is at 5 p.m. A lot of people like to go to dinner later than that, but the reality is that in the hills it starts to get dark by a certain time. So if you want to see the farm, it's important for you to come while it's still light. Usually people end while it's dark. So, to start at 8 o'clock in the evening, it's just not feasible. So those are the 2 times. You would select all of that. You would book. You'd find out if you want a wine pairing. We'd find out from you if you need help with transportation. All of those things are in the entire experience. We also ask you about things like dietary restrictions because we cater to everyone. And our philosophy is that everyone that sits around that table can eat a 6-course meal and not feel like, oh, well, they had bread and you can't have bread because you're gluten-free. So we cater to all of those diets, certain things you can't eat or whatever. It's all fine, right? So we prepare for you. Right? So you arrive at noon. We take you to a lookout point where you get an opportunity to see the whole of the North Coast. And then you come down to the farm and you have appetizers and drinks and all of that. Then you go for a farm tour and a walk with Christopher. He does all of the medicinal plants, and it's like a tasting tour. So if there's pineapple coming in, he'll peel a pineapple for you and you'll taste that. If there's watermelon radish coming in, he'll pull some, cut them. You have this opportunity to taste that. So it's a tasting tour. You come back up, you have the dinner or lunch, depending on which you've selected. And after that, you have an opportunity to buy any of the products that you've tasted the entire time that you have been up here, right? So if you've had our Blowfire pepper sauce, you get an opportunity to buy that. Or if you've had our banana preserve or our passion fruit butter, chimichurri sauce, pesto, any of those things, you get an opportunity to purchase them. Any of the dressings right now, seasonality is also important to us. So right now we have avocado green goddess dressing that is also vegetarian. So, vegan, totally vegan. All of our baking is vegan. So people have an opportunity to take anything home with them. You can't take the baking home because you have to pre-order that before you come. But people do that as well. So some people will place an order for items, and when they come up for dinner, they'll have dinner and they'll pick up their goodies and they're gone. So it's an experience, and it's not a rushed experience. It's a time where you kind of can sit back, take in the air, look at the stars, breathe, that's what it's supposed to be about. It's not this rushed, I got into this restaurant, I have 2 hours to eat, or I have an hour, I have a deadline to make. We're not the visit for that. We're the visit where you want to kind of like kick back a little bit, breathe in some air, and then mosey back to the city when you're ready. So it's more of a relaxed kind of experience. We talk to you about what you're eating and where it's coming from, and the fact that often it's been picked maybe an hour or two before you arrive. So
you're from Brooklyn, though, which is a fast-paced, go type of a lifestyle, and you are living the exact opposite. Did that from you personally, like you've had to gain a ton of new skills, and it seems like you've had to transition personally from a rushed type of a living to the lifestyle that you have now. Like, how has that evolved and changed over the 7 years?
Well, there's two things. When you come into a place and you're only here by marriage and you don't really have any family or anything like that here, I think you have to make your family. So I think that that's a critical part. And I think if you are truly an introvert, I think that's more of a challenge. I am not. So because I'm willing to kind of put myself into the mix and out there, I think it's a little bit different when you're transitioning to a place. And I think also that for me, I was sort of ready to be out of that, So it's not like if it's something, I think it's a different thing in reverse. If you're from a small place and you've not experienced all these things and you're still in that small place. But when you've been there and you've had the apartments and you've had the cars and you've been exposed to the shopping and everything else, and you're really looking for something different, I think you're kind of ready to take the pace down a little bit.
Yeah.
And originally I'm from Barbados. So I am from, in my genes and in my roots and in my ancestors, I'm from a small place. So I'm from a place where, it's the Caribbean and it's the blue sea and it's all of those things. And because I didn't have, because I grew up most of my life in New York, and then my mother used to send my sister and myself home to Barbados every summer until I was like 16 years old. So I've always called the Caribbean home in some way, shape, or form. So my mother always said that if any one of us was going to move back home, it would be me. So it was nice to be back home, in an island, even though it's not the island that I am from. It's still an island home where things just move slower, and it does take an adjustment in terms of trying to deal with people. And, in Jamaica, they have a saying called soon come. Soon come can be anything from 5 minutes to 5 years, right? I mean, it's just soon come.
When you're on vacation, though, that term soon come is okay. When you're trying to run a business, you've run out of money, you're trying to build a business to sustain it. That's a tougher thing to deal with.
Yeah, it is. But I think that you also have to learn how to hustle. You have to hustle. I mean, Jamaicans are not, they're very humble, but they're also hustlers. And any opportunity that they see that's going to work for them or where they can make some money, they're definitely going to try to do that with the best of intentions. So I don't necessarily think that I am in a place where it's all lackadaisical. No, people are hardworking and entrepreneurs and really always turning things on its head. And I think that's one of the things of beauty about Jamaica, right? You can take an idea much easier than if it was in United States of America and take it all the way through, you know. I just think it's a land of opportunity, land of rebels, but a land of opportunity, same way. So I think it's definitely all of that.
Why is it easier? Why do you think it's easier?
I think because you're in a place where you don't have to, all of the red tape that you have to kind of go through to start a business somewhere. You can just start. And in Jamaica, they kind of assist you to kind of go along in the same way. You know, it's a little bit different, I think, in the States, you know. For example, I remember when Chris first came to the States and we were driving on I-95 and he was like, there's just like nothing out here, right? Like, how do you drive on something like this? But if you drive here, right, on the roads, there's somebody selling ackee, there's somebody else selling rugs, there's somebody else selling baskets, there's someone else selling roast yam and saltfish on the side of the road. There's, so there's this opportunity all the way along. There's somebody selling tamarind, there's somebody selling guinea, there's somebody selling, So people constantly see little places. There's a fruit stand you can just run up and get something from. You can't do that in the States. You have to have license upon license and fee upon fee and all of that. It's a different scenario, right?
Yes.
So there's an ease here with that. And then once you start to move towards, you want your business to be legalized or registered and all of that, they assist you with that also. And I think because of the challenges that sometimes you have here with literacy and things of that nature, you will have a lot of assistance from the bank, or you'll have a lot of assistance from, different business entities that are willing to kind of help people here. So you can go from a small little mom and pop thing into something huge. And cottage industry here is also very big. So you can make things at home. You can do that sort of thing. It's a, I don't know. It's just, to me, I find that that's something that allows you to grow in a way that sort of can make sense for you and organically, as opposed to it just being, from the beginning, you have to find the money for the fees first before you even know what you're going to do.
Sure. Yeah, for
right.
sure.
So that, I think, is the difference.
Is there a big decision that you've made on the business side that you wish you had a do-over on?
No. I kind of somebody came up the other day and said, if you could go back in time to any age, which would you go back to? And I was like, I don't want to go back to any age. I like where I'm at right now. And I do. I like where I'm at right now. I like pretty much everything. I can't even really think about if there were things that I feel like we need now that we don't really have. I just like how things are continuously evolving and continuously growing. And it doesn't, it's not always super fast. Sometimes it's super slow and sometimes there are challenges, but I still think that at the end of the day, I am very happy with the way that things are.
How do you foresee the business and the farm evolving in the next 6 months? What are your plans?
We have a tent that we have started kind of doing a little bit of glamping. We have volunteers that come in. So people are constantly asking us about accommodations.
Yeah.
I haven't totally committed myself to that yet because accommodations then means 24/7. So I have to really consider whether or not I like ushering people out at the end of an evening and taking, some time now for myself. So I'm not really sure that we're going to 100% go in that direction. Or even if we do go in that direction, I don't know that it'll be 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Sure. I have to sort of see how that's going to work. We also, we're thinking about things like cookbooks. We're asked about that all the time. So there are general little directions that we want to go in. So we're still kind of toying and playing with some of those ideas and concepts. The concept of an outpost really appeals to us, whether it's on Jamaica or another island. So, I think that's probably the direction that we will ultimately go in.
Are you referring to outpost as just a second location doing the exact same thing? Pretty
much. Or doing a portion of what is done up here.
What advice do you have for the person, the teacher? I am in Texas, and if what you described earlier is exactly like what we hear from the teachers here in the public school systems in Texas, it's very regulated, it's very test heavy. You're not able to really be creative. Like if you're speak to the teacher or even an accountant or a lawyer that is doing something that after 17 or 20 years of them doing it, they're like, I think I'm done, but I don't really know what to do next. What do I do next? Like, speak to that person to try to help them make the transition from, in their minds, stuck to doing something like what you're doing.
I think I don't know. I think the best thing when you're at a point like that is to think about what are the things that you love to do. You have to work from a heart space, right? From a heart center. And I think once you start to do that, all the other things start to fall in place. And sometimes you have to walk through fire to get to that. But at the end of the day, it can be ultimately truly rewarding. And, I just love of food and just love of nature and love of environment can change up a lot of things for you. So you really have to be willing to let go. See, and life is so short, right? I mean, there are times when life feels long, but at the end of the day, after 20 years of something, I don't know that you want another 20 years of the same thing. You might instead want something that is completely different from what it was that you were doing before. But in many ways, that life still plays in your present life, right? Because in many ways, I'm still teaching, right? I'm just teaching you about something different, or I'm teaching something different. So it's still teaching. It's teaching people about food. It's teaching people about, being sustainable. It's teaching people that, no, you don't necessarily need to acquire all of these things to have this really great life. Sometimes you need to shed those things in order to have that really great life and to really find what is meaningful. So maybe it's teaching in another way, or maybe it's a complete 180, because 360 just lands you right back where you were. So, you just have to think about what are the things that move you? What are the things that inspire you? Right? So for me, when I first went into teaching, it was books. I still have that love. It hasn't left me. Right? But now it's cookbooks too, in addition to literature, right? Or it's, so you just have to have some trust. You have to be willing to take some risks. You have to be willing to fall on your face. You have to be willing to pick yourself back up, and you have to be willing and open to help and assistance. So I think all of those things kind of play in to making that experience a holistic one.
We are going to end it at that. That is perfect. You can find Lisa and Chris at stushinthebush.com and also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at stushinthebush. And those will be in the show notes. Lisa, thank you very much for joining me today and sharing your journey with us.
My pleasure.
Don't forget to hit up the rock stars at printdirtcheap.com. Use promo code GoHuntLife for $10 off of your next print job. For fast, cheap, and high-quality online printing, it's printdirtcheap.com. Hey, Life Hunters. Thank you for listening to this episode of Go Hunt Life. If you like the show and would like to support it, go to iTunes and do this. Subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and review it. It helps. And thank you. If you or someone that you know has quit their normal life to follow their dreams, I would love an introduction and maybe interview them on the show. You can find me at gohuntlife.com and also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at Go Hunt Life. Until next time, stay weird, dare greatly, and ripcord out.